Minka threw on her jacket and strode through the barrack hall to personally issue the orders. She found her troopers in small groups playing cards or lying in their bunks. Full kit tomorrow, 0500 hours. Some grunted, some groaned, and some appeared not to hear her at all. She had no time for this. Hear me? Yes, they said. As she turned to go, a figure stepped out in front of her. She tried to go past him, but he stepped in front of her again. She was about to shove past him when he spoke. My name is Laptev. I'm your new corporal. She sized him up. From his scars, it was clear that he'd taken a couple of hard rounds in the Emperor's name. But now, his hands were thrust deep into his pockets and his jacket was unbuttoned, his belt loosely buckled about his waist. He was the kind of fighter whose smile looked threatening, the kind of thug you didn't want to cross. Laptev, good. Welcome. She put out a hand, but he did not shake it. Minka kept her hand out. He made no movement. I'm your corporal, not your buddy, he said. Right, she said, and took her hand back. A full kit run tomorrow, 0500 hours. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaka. I almost called myself the Emperor. I should be. The well-rounded nerd, getting back into Minka Lesk. I have actually scheduled time during my weeks now to sit and read, and usually before bedtime, which is working out pretty great. I went from having made it third of the way through this book to halfway, because it actually is really good. Once you get past the first big section of the book, which is giving all of this background of different battles happening, it then is transitions into Minka being really the main focus, which she's on the book, but you get way more of her. And then there's another character called Karkal. I did a speaking about him a few weeks ago, who, we're following his journey. So you're kind of going back and forth between them in part two. But Minka has been through at this point. She has been through. She has survived a battle of not only her home world being destroyed, she survives the Battle of Acadia as a white shield, which basically is, I guess in the army would be considered a private. Like she is at the bottom rung, she's new. They draft Cadians into the armed forces on Cadia at 16. That's when you're put in. And she is like everyone else. She knows she's going into the military. Cadia decides who is going to be in the military, and they have a system of deciding who was going to do administrative work, like who's going to make the bullets, or who's going to assign the bullets, who's going to feed everybody, and who's going to be for reproductive purposes. Not all Cadians go to war. They recognize that enough that they have to keep pumping out more people for there to be more Cadians. So they do have an administratum side, but every part of the Imperium of Mankind has an administratum. But Minka is in an interesting position. So not only has she survived the fall of Cadia, but she also survives another battle where no one really knows how she survived. So she's kind of like she creeping towards sainthood. I have not finished it yet, but based on other books I've read, she creeping toward being someone that like has the light of the emperor upon her in a significant way. She goes through a period of time where she is in the Medicaid. She is, pretty beat up from her last battle that they don't know how she survived. And they keep trying to ask her, how'd you survive this? She's like, I survived. Look, I'm Cadian. That's how I survived. That's the answer. Cadian. Which I think is a good answer. I'm Cadian. Of course I survived. It takes a whole lot bad in the despoiler to take me out. Yeah, I know I'm wearing a heresy hoodie. but but they're running out of Cadians. And Cadians represent something in the Imperium of Mankind. They are the last bastion of hope, even above the Space Marine legions, between humanity and chaos. They are the strongest non-augmented fighters the Imperium has ever produced. So they are a symbol to humanity. Well, that besides the sisters, don't let me forget the sororitas. Them and the sororitas, because the sororitas can't be augmented either. So it's kind of like a punch back in a way to all of the Mechanicum and to the into the Space Marine legions, that humans don't have to become monsters. The sad part is when you're fighting monsters, you need monsters. The Space Marines are monsters. Let's be very clear. They're not human. They're not human, like, at all. They are monsters. They are horrifying abnormalities. Even though it's done to them, they ain't human, in my opinion. But the Cadians, as far as humans, are up here. They are the strongest fighters. They live long. They see a lot. They're organized. They're disciplined. And Abaddon really shook morale throughout the known galaxy when he brought down Cadia, because Cadia was not supposed to fall. And if our strongest among us can't stand, what good are the rest of us? Still doesn't matter though, because having 10 Cadians with you is better than no Cadians. So now she's made her way she's been brought to a planet called Potence, which is kind of a key city in this sector that Abaddon and his despoilers are despoiling. And they've been sent there, and so has Karkal. We'll talk about Karkal in the next video. But she, from White Shield, because she's one of the last Cadians and she survived a lot, she's been promoted now. She's a sergeant and she has her own little set of troops to command. And it's kind of implied that she's promoted because they don't have any better choices. But at some point, people are promoted if they stay in a profession long enough, be it the profession of making wool or baking bread. You do well enough, you should elevate in your line of work. And I read this story the other night, this portion of the book. Um, and that would be in January. So by the time y'all see this, I may be finished with the book because she's screaming through it. So good. I should be reading more 30K. Adepticon is coming, but it's where I'm at. But this portion of her story really got to me because I have little tolerance for assholery for the sake of being an asshole. I don't cuss often on this channel. Doesn't mean I don't cuss. I'm grown. I can say what I want when I want. But for the algorithm. But she has been through just as much as any other soldier. And she actually, before Leptev gets assigned to her as her corporal, so that's a step down under Minka, so basically her second in command, she had another second in command of this little group. And when she first takes over the group, when they're assigned to her, even the commissars are talking about them like, yeah, this is the best we could cobble together. Half of them Acadians, the rest of them, there's one other female in the group. And then it turns out her first corporal that she gets is a drug dealer. So they drag him out, and commissars be out looking for people to shoot. That's what they do. Commissars don't have a great reputation in the 40K and 30K universe. They mean, but they are there to keep order. They are there to be a threat to the troops, that if you don't keep in line, we don't mind shooting you. That is their purpose. They are there to be the villain. They are the Dolores Umbridge eye of the book. No. Dolores Umbridge was terrible. They're the Filches. We'll call them the Filches of the universe, because Filch had a purpose. He was keeping that school clean, and them kids, and they always playing pranks on that man and his cat. Leave that man and his cat alone. Let him and Mrs. Norris be happy. Okay. Like, anyway, but they do serve a distinct purpose. And if Minka had any knowledge of his dealings, they'd have shot her too. I mean, potential saint or not, we can't be having that amongst. But they needed a Cadian as a leader, and they don't have a lot of strong Cadians left. They have a lot of white shields, and she's not a brand new white shield. She's been through. We either pick the white shield that's only ever been on a starship and never seen battle to promote, or we pick the white shield that survived the fall of Acadia, has been on a space marine ship with them wolves and made it out of there, and also mysteriously survives. Let's pick her. We pick her. And because it's the 40K universe, this is what I love. If you want ultimate diversity and equality, come to Warhammer. Come to Warhammer. There's something for everybody. Everybody can get it. There is no inference that her little group that's been assigned to her, that her little 12 troopers disrespect her because she's a woman. That's not it. That's not it. She's a new, untested leader. That's why they're acting this way. And I think it's so important to ground human interactions and try and instead, we always try to find what the worst reason is, but what is it, Occam's razor? Slice, slice, slice until you get to the simplest explanation. They are testing her because she's a new leader. We're going for a run tomorrow. Meh. Like, even when she first takes him out, the first assignment they send her on with her troops are to go check on a settlement of refugees and make sure everything's going okay because they heard things were starting to get gang overrun. The Astra Militarum and the Cadians don't know how badly overrun by gangs it is. So they send her out with her 12 troops and like one support vehicle, and it turns into a whole like battle. And she manages to save almost all, like nobody dies. She saves them all. And well, no, I think one guy, no, she saves all her troops herself and manages to capture the gang leader and bring him back for interrogation. So a battle that wasn't even supposed to happen and they were underprepared for, she still survived. So she has what it takes to be a leader. But as far as they're concerned, she's untested. Because on Cadia, they don't care if you're male or female. In the Emperor's 41st millennium, they do not care what is between your legs. Can you fight? Can you hold a gun? Can you work? Can you do those things? Okay, we can find you a place. Oh, you can't work? You can't fight? We have no use for you. Not that there aren't families that are rich enough and elite enough that their kids don't have to get involved in that. That exists in every society. But for the most part, you have to have a function in the Emperor's Millennium. And she does. She has proven herself, but they don't know any of that about her. And her first corporal was a drug dealer. So now it's like, oh, how did you not know? But even though she just got them out of battle, as soon as she gets them out of a battle, the corporal gets shot. And like everybody knows, the whole like fort, no, everybody in the bear, everybody knows. Everybody knows what happened with Minka's corporal. So they assign her a new corporal, and he's a jerk. I'm not shaking your hand. I don't like you. And this is where things kind of like hit like a nerve with me, because even though there are cases where leaders are untested or you don't know the inner workings of relationship, I cannot abide being a jerk for the sake of being a jerk. I can't stand it. And now I haven't read more about Leptev. He may have his reasons. They don't matter. You're meeting your new boss and you want to be a jerk. Well, that's just how the army is. You know what? I live in a city where just about everywhere is like has people who are former military working there. And let me tell you, Doug, Chris, Wes, Clay, the rest of them are still in, so I can't talk about them. Butters, they're all great folks. Not a one of them have I seen be like, if you watch my channel, you've recognized these names. I talked about them before. But you'll see a lot, they'll all be at Adepticon. If you're going, like every one of them. If you see me, you'll see them. My husband. Um, the military does have its culture. Every workplace has its culture. I've been in the enterprise sales world in some form or fashion for 20 years. I've been a salesperson, I've been a trainer, I've been a people leader, I've been in there some way. Every organization has a way of being, and the organizations I found to be the most successful were the ones that took care of people first, and then people took care of the business and set up a culture of not creating toxicity. I mean, you get a bunch of people together, at some point there's going to be clashes of personality because humans are going to human, but we don't have to do it on purpose. We don't have to lead with anger. We don't have to lead with, everyone doesn't have to be your friend, but you also don't have to be an ass to everybody. Two things can be true at once. No, everyone at your job is not your friend, but you don't have to make them an enemy either. And I instantly don't like this guy. There was another chapter about car call I was going to talk about first, but this pissed me off so bad. Oh, you're my new corporal? Nice to meet you. Uh-uh. No. No, ma'am, no, sir. And don't tell me you got a germ issue. You're at war. Okay, ain't no germs. All right, everything's a germ right now. Can't be bothered. No, we're not accepting that explanation. There is no reason to inject hostility when everything is already chaotic. My window's right there, so I'm pointing to the outside world. It is chaos out there. There are things going on that I actively try to make sure I do not introduce into my psyche. Like I was scrolling on the YouTube the other day and a story popped up, and just the title of that story made me want to cry. It was so tragic. And I was like, I cannot put that in my brain because everyone out there, everyone is going through. You, they are in an environment where even if someone has a little bit of experience or a lot of experience, they've still all been through. Everyone's been through. There is no will prove to me how tough. No, there's nothing to prove. Everyone you encounter has been through something. All right, that's the world we live in. Some of us are lucky enough to have insurance and can go to therapy. All right, and those who can't either heal somehow or wreak havoc on everybody else. Laptab strikes me as somebody who's about to wreak havoc on everybody else because he's been through, and if you haven't been through to the level of his been through that he thinks you're been through isn't respectable. Don't be that. Don't be that way. Please don't. Everyone's story is valid. Everyone's experiences are valid. Just because they're not yours, don't make them invalid. Everyone's experience builds who they are. I am a product of where I was born, who I was born to, and the experiences I had as a result of that. That's what made me right now. My experience isn't less. Like a lot of people, talk about how, oh, well, people who are born into wealth aren't living in the real world. That is their real world. Just because it's not your real world doesn't make it not the real world. And let me tell you, I have known a couple of young people from some up there families. Ain't gonna tell you who, not your business. But I've known to like been really good friends with them. I went to private school for 10 years. but and into adulthood, I met a couple in college who were in nobody knew because let me tell you, real money, like, I mean, you're on the Jeff Bezos level, everybody's going to know you're the richest person on earth. Everybody knows who Elon Musk is. But people with money are pretty quiet about it unless they are in a position that puts them in the public eye. And I hung out with this one girl. I never, like, she was such a quiet person. And I'm an extrovert, so I'm gonna pick the quietest person in the room and be like, "We're friends now." And she was such a quiet, withdrawn person. And throughout those couple of years of college, we were decent friends. We'd hang out all the time because we were bosom buddies. But it became apparent after some observation that her life wasn't bad. That's as far as material possessions. However, as a result of her upbringing, her parents were both powerful from powerful families. She was raised by nannies. She wasn't raised by her parents. She knows them. Like for her, spending time with her parents was like an appointment. Like I literally one day she was scheduling time to see her dad, and I was like, and we're all 19. So I'm like, we need scheduled time to see your dad. She's like, oh, well, he's really busy. So I have to go through his secretary to get time with him. I was like, your dad has a secretary? Tell me more about you. But she wasn't raised by her family. She was raised by strangers who were more mom and dad to her than her actual parents. It's easy to look at a life that's not our own and say, because your life is different than mine, there's no way you can possibly understand me. They have a different set of tragedies. Just because someone's tragedy and experience is different doesn't mean it counts less. Sometimes in them circles where money buys secrecy, money buys loyalty, yeah, what are these trials that just finished? Y'all, there's stuff going on in those circles of society that we don't want to. They will ruin everybody's day, and there's nothing any of us can do about it. So I never look at a person and go, "Oh, your life is good." If somebody out meets me out, like today, me and my husband this evening are going on a date with a couple of friends. One of them being one of those former army people and his wife. Him and his wife served. And they're lovely. We're going to see Amadeus at the symphony. The symphony is going to play Amadeus while the movie plays. It's going to be great. They even have the choir. It's going to be awesome. I'm dressing to the nines because it's a symphony day. I'm going to put on like a really nice Chinese style dress. I got some high boots I'm going to wear, some tights, doing full makeup. It's going to be a whole thing. Um, Taking my big fancy truck. Husband's going to do it up. We're going to go out to dinner before. If you were to look at us just in that picture of that moment of us, especially when we get dressed up for like fancy date night, you would never know what any of our lives were outside of that. You look at this bovine scatology and you think, man, she's got it made. You weren't there for the other 40 something years of my life. I'm 43. 43. I know when I take my hair down, I think it's going to make me look older. I'm getting ready for new braids, but this face will not change. I don't know what I'm going to have to be 60 before this face changes because I can't look grown. The only time I look grown is when I get dressed up, like fancy dressed up. But as much as I love these figures, some of these figures represent moments in my life that carry memories that aren't great because I bought them to assuage my inner child at a tough moment. You can't look at someone and write them off and choose rudeness because you size them up. Minka recognizes that everybody is going through right now, and she is trying to lead with kindness. Don't tell me that none of them do, because there are plenty of them in here that do. That don't. That dadgum wolf, uh, he made sure that them Cadian human soldiers who worked their butts off to get to his ship and were trying to open it, he got them off the planet. He showed kindness. He could have left them and he didn't. He recognized that these are people worth saving. Look at this girl. This girl she done fought the zombies. She done fought she done fought the Abaddon despoils. We gonna save this girl. And their brotherhood literally bows down to her. They're like, she a good one. But Laptev doesn't know any of that about her. His experience has taught him to, from this little interaction, seems to have taught him to be mistrusting of leaders. That if he shows any kind of friendliness, that shows weakness. And that he's going to lead with icy daggers instead of build camaraderie. I tend to be a person that leads with friendliness and kindness. And I will lead that way until someone shows me I shouldn't. And even then, I still try to figure out how I can make it better. I've been in the corporate space my whole career. Except for a brief part of my career when I was between jobs, I have only ever worked for large corporations. I mean, large ones. I've only ever been in the Fortune 500 in my career, which is fun for me, but I'm a good little corporate worker bee. It's good for me. It's not for everybody, it's for me. Um, And I remember instances where teams are being formed, or I get a new boss, or I'm somebody's new boss, where instantly there's animosity where there need not have been. Where you try to lead with friendliness and someone just, like years ago in another company, I got promoted to a supervisor position, and someone who didn't get that role, who they may be the supervisor over that team, she made it her life's mission to ruin my life and like make it look like I was doing everything to her. If I say good morning to this girl, she would break down crying. You see how she talks to me? And like it got so bad that like they brought us into an office one day with a senior manager as a mediator. And we're like, we need to figure out what's going on between you two. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she literally broke down crying. See, this is how she is. I literally was sitting there like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, granted, I was like 25 at the time. So I'm sure I did some dumb stuff. But none of the dumb stuff she accused me of did I ever do. She was upset. It turned out after some talking and cajoling, she really needed that promotion because I had actually been to that girl's wedding like the summer before on the hottest day of July in the South, in Tennessee, out in the hills. Oh my God, it was so me and another coworker. I went to like 5 weddings with that coworker. We had a good time. But we went, I think every couple's wedding we went to are divorced now. But we went out to that wedding and ate cake. It was hot. so hot. The church wasn't open when we got there, so there was no air conditioning. It was just, oh, it was gross. Um, we celebrated with her. We went to parties with the people. When I got that job overnight, this girl hated me, but I didn't know it. But her and her husband were on the outs. He left. She had 2 children by herself in a house she couldn't afford by herself. I didn't know any of that. I just knew that this girl was coming for my throat, and I didn't know why. And so I just tried to keep being nice. And eventually we talked about it. I was like, girl, I can't give you my job because I needed to. At the time, my mom was health was starting to fail. And that's when I started taking care of my mom. I needed the promotion and the money just as much as she did. So I wasn't going to give her my job. But what I did do was we spent a few months doing some career counseling, um, interview coaching, and doing her resume. And she ended up getting a job with our company in another state and moving her kids out there and starting a new life and selling her house. It's a happy ending. That's what you're supposed to do. I didn't. I'm hoping that something happens and this meanness between the two of them gets punched through. I don't know that yet at this point of reading, but let me tell you, I don't like it, and I'm mad about it, and I needed to share my feelings. Don't be a jerk. Look, we've all had stuff happen to us, and your experience is valid, your feelings are valid. But the person right in front of you most likely has nothing to do with any of the things that happened to you. And I find that my life is far more beautiful and full of good people, laughter, and I'm making new good memories if I choose to lead with kindness. It took a long time for Minka to calm down enough to sleep. She did not say her prayers, but did press ups till sweat ran down her face and her shoulders burned, and she couldn't lift her face from the floor. The workout helped. She lay on her bed and stared up at the ceiling and calmed her breathing. At some point, she must have fallen asleep, a restless sleep, punctuated by dreams. In one dream, she was 13 again. A campfire was burning against the night. She was on the Caucades Islands, and the sea breeze was whipping at low flames. Her face and boots were warm. The rest of her was cold. And about her came the sound of wind whistling through the low heather on the moor top. In another, she was a child again, in the Hab zone of Khazar Mirak, walking with her brother to the bread shop, getting a pound of the dense black tuck-wheat loaf. Want it cutting, the baker said. He was a veteran, had one arm, but managed to get the loaf into the slicing machine and fed it through into a brown paper bag. Here. She gave him the ration tab, and he dropped it into his bucket. Walking back with her brother. Her brother. In dreams, he felt so real, so alive. She could turn and talk to him, and he would respond and speak like a living person. I'll carry it, her dream self said, and he handed her the bag, and she could feel the rough paper in her hand. What was his name? She thought, and she tried to turn to him to ask, but she could not. She was 8 or 9, and she was walking home with her brother, carrying the bread ration for that day. It was a good place to pause and remember. But her dream mind lingered too long, and the wolves of memory caught her. As she turned to her brother, she was no longer in the dark street of Kasar Mirak, but underground, and the ceiling was drip lime stalactites. She was knee-deep in slime pools. She knew she had stayed too long in the past and tried to wake, but the wolves had her tight and would not let go. She could hear him. Like a roar of a giant, the flash of red, and then a strobe lighting of a las-bolt fusillade. 8 feet of power-armored terror. She ducked and had a brief image of an axe head, chain teeth whirling, and her legs were like jelly for a moment, and there was gore in her nose, in her screaming mouth, not just blood, but thick gobs of human hair and flesh, the grit of bone shards and flak armor. Minka bolted upright. It was void black about her. Her hands instinctively whipped her carbine around the fire. But the giant was gone. Her hands were empty. There was sweat on her forehead and down her back. Her brother. She focused on that moment to calm her thundering heart. His name was Tarly. She had promised her mother that she would look after him. She had done her best. He would be 16 now. A white shield. Maybe he was alive somewhere. Maybe the Emperor did care. She took a deep breath. She needed to clear her head, needed to think. She was a sergeant, and the Emperor was watching her. And by the throne, tomorrow morning, she was going to get her squad in order. Next morning, Minka had a cold shower. She dressed and spit polished her boots. At 0455 hours, she was standing on the parade ground with the healthy members of her squad lined up before her. She was tired. Everyone was here, except the new man, Laptev. Anyone see him? She snapped. Jaromir stepped forward. The big man stared down at her. He spoke slowly. He said he had better stuff to do. Minka made the big man repeat it. Is that so? Yes, Jaromir said. His eyes started twitching again. She found it hard to look at him. I told him, but that's what he said. Minka felt the eyes of all her squad on her. She felt Drino and Bellis waiting for her to screw up and bristled. Victor! Order Corporal Laptev here now. She could feel them all thinking. Well, what? He'll get the bats on him. Victor saluted and turned in his boots on a stone slab of the parade ground. Her mind's eye followed him through the doorway of the barracks and down the wide stone flags of the screw stair, down to the sleeping bays that opened up on either side. Then Laptev appeared. Corporal, I gave you instructions that the squad were to assemble at 0500 hours for drill. Laptev looked at the squad. And they're here. But you were not. You wanted me to come too. Minka heard Drino and Bellis snigger. Minka's hands were trembling. She'd lost Arctur already, and now the squad were making her look and feel like a rookie. She put her hands behind her back so no one would see and clenched them into fists. She didn't blink as she said, I assume that was clear. No, he said. It wasn't. Minka had read his reports right now. He'd been in service for 6 years. He'd had a number of early commendations for bravery, promotion, specialized in hand-to-hand combat. He'd even made sergeant at some point, though it wasn't clear why he'd been demoted. From his report, she'd expected a type common amongst the Cadians. Fierce, dependable, prone to drink when off duty, hot-headed enough to resolve arguments with his fist. She had not expected such hostility. I served with Arctur for 6 years, Laptev said suddenly. He dragged me out of no man's land once. I owed him. Listen, I'm really sorry about what happened, she said. If he hadn't been dealing obscura, officers like you don't live long, Laptev said. Are you threatening me? His gaze narrowed. No, I'm telling you the truth. look, look, y'all. I communications major, English major. I've read the clues. I know that there's a whole story here. But the lesson is that everyone out there is not responsible for your tragedy. Minka had nothing to do with what happened with her previous corporal. He was dealing drugs. She had no idea. A commissar who was looking to shoot somebody found out and shot him. That is the long and short of it. She didn't choose to be promoted. They picked the best option they thought they had. Laptev is taking his anger out on someone who has nothing to do with the tragedies in his life. That doesn't diminish his tragedy, but she's not responsible for his tragedy. Don't weigh other people down with your tragedy. Find an outlet, find friends, find something to do to get your energy out. Go run, paint Warhammer, read a book, go to therapy. But whatever's going on with me has nothing to do with thee. And I have no right to make somebody else suffer for what's happened to me. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.